Hello, you beautiful people. Today we got some must roster waiver wire additions. So I have some guys who I think are short term ads for just this week, and some who I think could have some value over the longer term, so that's going to be highlighted. They're also ranked in order of who I would pick up first in order to avoid any confusion. So the guy I have ranked 1, if he's on your waiver wire, I would pick him up first and sort of progress from there. And yeah, as always, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to. We're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by New Year's, and I'd really appreciate if you could help us get there. And yeah, the Discord in the description, any fantasy help you might need. There's a great community in there. Ask any fantasy related questions, or if you just want to talk NBA shit, good place to do that. But yeah, with that being said, let's just go ahead and get right into the video. So the first one is pretty obvious, but he's just only rostered in 67% of leagues, so I just believe he should be rostered in at least 80%, so this is more for like my 8-team league guys. If you're in an 8-team league, then I think Mo Bamba is a must roster player. Per minute producing, he's just unreal, and so far he's been getting the minutes this season and is starting to pick up his performances. He's starting to score more efficiently, but it's mainly just like the peripheral stats with Mo Bamba. I mean, he's contributing a lot in the blocks department, a few steals thrown in there, and the rebounding rate's really nice. He's averaging around 9 rebounds per game. So first off, he's a pretty obvious one, but I just don't think he is rostered in enough leagues because I think it should be a little bit higher because on ESPN, like I said, it's only 67% right now. So Mo Bamba, just not going to talk about him too much. I think it's pretty evident that he is a must-roster player. Unless you're new to fantasy, then of course, this is your wake-up call to go pick him up if he's on your waiver wire. Then another one of the worst-kept secrets, just to start off with 2 really obvious ones, is going to be Josh Giddey. He's also someone that I would consider. Him and Mo Bamba both are sort of long-term options. I don't think that they're just going to be good streams for this week. I think going forward, you can rely on both of their fantasy production. But yeah, OKC don't have a lot of options outside of Giddey and Shea in terms of creation and scoring, but Giddey's shown some really nice flashes so far into his career. He's only averaging 10 points per game, but there's 6 rebounds and 6 assists to go with that. I think his scoring numbers are going to pick up a little bit. He's not the greatest shooter in the world, but he's sort of finding ways to contribute all across the stat category, and it's really making him relevant for a fantasy perspective. I don't really know why he's only rostered in 53% of leagues on ESPN. I think that should be a bit higher, at least into the 70s. I consider him a must roster in like up to 10-team leagues. 8-team leagues, it's debatable. I would still consider him probably a rosterable player. Definitely not must roster right now, but if you're in a 10-team or above, I think Josh Giddey is a must roster player. And now we're going to get into some of the big ones that are sort of more recent and probably aren't as aware, or you might not be as aware of, I should say. But first off, Andre Drummond. He is this week only. I think while Joel Embiid is in the protocols, Tobias Harris is out, Simmons isn't playing, Thibel's out. The Sixers don't really have anybody, and when Drummond gets into these sort of situations where he's the only big guy pretty much that can play, he's going to get like 30 minutes a game, and when he gets those 30 minutes, he puts up ridiculous fantasy numbers, man. It's mainly the rebounding. He's going to grab like 15 rebounds a game probably, and then sort of fill out the other stats, and like not the most efficient scoring wise. Can't really shoot free throws that well, but I mean his free throw numbers are up this year. I should give him some credit, but I mean we all know what it is. Andre Drummond, if he's getting the minutes, if there's no other good players playing, he's going to take a lot of shots that he probably shouldn't be taking, but just by sheer volume of shots he's going to take and sheer amount of like actions he's going to be involved in, I think he's a must roster player for like at least until Joel Embiid is back in the lineup. So yeah, he's someone that I'm looking forward to. I would consider him like probably because I assume that Josh Giddey and Mo Bamba are picked up on most of your guys' leagues, but Andre Drummond, if he isn't in, like, if he's on your waiver wire right now, pause this video and go pick him up. Like, I think it is that crucial that he's on a roster for this week at the very least. So yeah, that's going to do it for him. Andre Drummond, very must roster player. Like, I could not emphasize that enough. He's someone that I think is probably going to put up some crazy numbers for this week. He could really help you win a matchup if you're in a difficult one. So I definitely look at picking up Andre Drummond. Then we move on to Ricky Rubio. Ricky Rubio to the moon, man. It's Ricky Rubio's world right now, and we're just living in it. And now we're coming across the news that Sexton has suffered a meniscus injury. So I don't know how long necessarily he's going to be out. They're saying right now it might be like 6 to 8 weeks, like on a rough estimate. But it's just looking like Ricky Rubio is really going to pick up the slack from where Sexton's going to be out for so long. And with that 37-point performance he had last game, I obviously don't expect that to continue, but I do think it's worth giving him a roster and probably all the way up to 8-team leagues. I think he is someone that could like go ahead and be on, like, sort of become a long-term pickup option. So that's why I have him ranked higher than a lot of guys that I think might outperform him this week. But I think it's worth taking the risk on Rubio if he's on your waiver wire of picking him up and seeing what he can do, because if he sort of keeps up having some like 8-team league production, then that's someone that you can hold on to for quite a long time, and it goes sort of beyond just like the 1 week waiver wire pickup. So that's why he is higher on my list. But like I said, if you're focusing on this week, a tough matchup, maybe not Rubio, maybe some guys I have ranked below him on my list. would be guys that you'd be more interested in streaming, but I think Ricky Rubio definitely has the potential to be a great long-term ad. And then another guy who I was very high on going into this season, but so it's sort of been disappointing so far, but he's really started to pick it up this past week, and it's going to be Jordan Poole. So Jordan Poole's put up 31 points, 26 points, and 25 points in his last 3 games, and he's sort of a guy that if he's hot, like you sort of have to roster him. I don't know how long this run's going to last, but he's on a really good stretch right now. He's shooting the ball with a lot of confidence. And yeah, he's getting the minutes for it as well. He's getting like 30 minutes a game. So if you got a shooter like Jordan Poole, he doesn't really contribute too much in the other statistical categories, but when a scorer gets going, you sort of want to pick him up when he's in form and on a hot streak. So I would consider him a must roster for this week. There's definitely the potential that he goes back to like mortal form and he doesn't average like 30 points per game, but I think for this week it's worth taking a risk if you can pick him up if he's on your waiver wire. Because he has a lot of upside, you know what I mean? Like, there is some downside involved, obviously, if you have a player that doesn't contribute in anything outside of scoring. They could have an off night, but when they're hot like Jordan Poole is right now, I think it's worth the risk. And then next up, similarly, I already talked about it with Andre Drummond, but it's going to be Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton. These are 2 guys that I think really are going to step into the void that's on the 76ers right now because they just have nobody. Like, there's nobody that's like a standout player that's going to be scoring the ball. It's all falling on their rotational guys. They're really going to step into more prominent roles. And I think Maxey, I have him ranked a little bit ahead of Shake. I think they're both going to have really good weeks, but I just have him a bit higher because Shake has been coming back from an injury, still getting more into the swing of things. I think Tyrese is probably going to have better production throughout the week, but I could be wrong on that. I could see Shake overturning that because he does sort of contribute in the assist categories and the rebounding a little bit more than Maxey does, but could see it going both ways. But either way, I consider them both must roster. If they're both on your waiver wire, I would pick up Maxey first, but if Maxey's taken, then I don't think Shake's a bad backup option. Next up, Grayson Allen. Chris Middleton's out in the protocols as well. It seems like this has just been a really bad week for the NBA and protocol stuff, but so far he's put up 2 really solid games back-to-back, put up 49 fantasy points and 41 fantasy points. So when a shooter, like I said with Jordan Poole, when a shooter's got it going, I think it's worth taking a risk on him for a stream on a week like this week when their Milwaukee's like number 2 option was out. Drew Holiday's sort of working himself back into the swing of things. Brook Lopez is also out, so there's a few more shot opportunities available to Grayson Allen. And yeah, that's why I'm considering him a rosterable player. He took 12 shots 2 games ago, and then I think last game he also took 12 shots, so not too bad if he's on your waiver wire. He's more for a deeper league, guys. Like, I would consider him must roster in like a 12 team and above, but if you're in a 10 to 8 team, then I don't consider him must roster by any stretch, even for this week. And then next up, Nick Batum. This one has the potential to go into a long-term ad. I think he is sort of on a bit of a hot streak right now. But Nick Batum sort of does have the ability to contribute in a lot of statistical categories, so it could go beyond this week, although I'm not too confident in that. But even if you're just looking for like a short-term stream, I think Nick Batum is a good option. The Clippers do have like not that many other injuries. Like Marcus Morris is out, everybody knows Kawhi is out, so you're really expecting some of the other guys to pick up the slack other than Paul George. And so far, Batum's sort of working his way into stepping up and fulfilling a role that's helping them win games. And I think he's really going to be a good streaming option for this week, so I would consider him must roster, and probably pretty similarly like 12 team and above. 10 team, you could make the case for him, but I think 12 team and above, he is definitely must roster. Going on, Thagic Johnson, one of my favorite players in the league because, I mean, the dude's just, I mean, what is there not to like about Thad Young? Yeah, so far he's a pretty similar situation as to all these guys, whereas I only think he's a short-term ad because Jakob Poeltl is in the protocols as well. So this has just been a really good week to take advantage of like streaming options that weren't really like guys that I would look at even having on a roster, but you know how it is with the NBA, circumstances happen, things come up, and it just makes people that you wouldn't expect to be that fantasy relevant sort of pop up into prominence. So Thad Young, off the top, I think he is a good like waiver wire ad for this week. Probably the most short-term ad on the list because as soon as Poeltl comes back in, he wasn't really even getting any minutes when Poeltl was in the lineup, but for right now while he's out, I think he could have some really good fantasy value, and I would consider him must roster for a similar thing like 12 team and up. 10 team, I don't know if you have the case for Thad Young there. I would say probably, but I don't think 8 team. You should really be looking at him. I think there's probably guys that I've mentioned ahead of him on this list that I would rather have instead. But yeah, anyway, we'll just keep going into it. Another one from the Sixers is going to be Korkmaz. I think they're running like a 7-man rotation or something stupid right now, so you might as well. This one's for like my deeper leagues, like my last 3 on my list here. This is really, like these guys are not rostered. Like Korkmaz is rostered in less than 5% of leagues. So I would consider him, I would take the flyer on him if you're in a 14-team league. Anything above that, I would, if he's on your waiver wire, might as well. The Sixers really don't have a lot of scoring options, as I've already stated with the other 3 Sixers players on this list. So might as well take the flyer on Korkmaz. He could surprise you and put up some really good numbers for this week. And then, yeah, next person on my list, everybody knows if you've been with the channel for a while, I love this player way more than I should. Jalen Brunson. He's looked pretty solid so far for the Mavericks. I think KP being out of the lineup did help him have a really good game. But KP is back now, so it remains to be seen if he'll be able to keep up like his decent production. But yeah, for my deeper leagues, Brunson's only rostered in he's rostered in 24% of leagues, so he went up 11% since I last looked at this, probably because he had the big 31-point game. But yeah, for deeper leagues, I would consider Brunson a must roster for this week. Just for in terms of a streaming option, I don't think he should be on any waiver wires. I think he's probably going to have a few solid games. But like I said, he is pretty low on my list, so everyone above him I would be more comfortable taking. And then last up, I want to mention, this is another guy for my very deep league. It's going to be Payton II. And I think he's been getting a little bit overlooked because he's had 3 really solid games by now. He's not the greatest scorer in the world, but decent defender. Contributes a lot in like the steals categories. He has the potential to get quite a few of those. And yeah, he's getting the minutes now. He's played like 20 minutes the past 3 games. So like I said, he's not going to be getting crazy minutes, so he is sort of way more of a deeper league ad, But yeah, I think he could be a decent streamer for this week, so I would look at rostering him if you're in a 14-team plus league. He's only rostered in 3% of leagues right now, so just wanted to throw him in there, give you guys something to look at in case you were wondering who is a good streaming option for this week. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up. Quite a few streaming options for this week, way more than there are most weeks, but I just think there's been a lot of opportunities provided by people being out for protocols and injuries, etc. So yeah, like I mentioned at the start of the video, these are in order of like who I would like pick up off waivers first. So I'd pick up Bamba first, then Josh Giddey, etc., etc. And I do value the long-term ads a little bit more just because of like the potential, because ideally when you have a streaming spot, if you can pick up a guy that's just so solid that you don't need to stream anymore, that's just an absolute win. And something like that really helps you towards like securing the win in your whole fantasy league at the end of the season. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like I said, don't forget to join the Discord, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, as always, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.